Good morning, everyone. This is Keyur from GeoSec. I take care of outreach and programs here. So, welcome uh, to the digital marketing session today. So, before we begin the session, I would, talk a brief about GeoSec. So, GeoSec is India's leading startup support system, which has set a benchmark by facilitating startups at 0 day, zero cost policy. We have supported startups by providing them free co-working space, access to government grants, access to laboratories, infrastructure, intellectual property, as well as software supports. In the span of 4 years, we have supported more than 200 plus startups, and currently we have 120 startups incubated with us. They have currently crossed 6 crores of revenues and generated more than 550 plus jobs in the last 4 years. So currently we are also running an accelerator program called GeoSec Breakthrough Accelerator. It is in partnership with UNICEF, and it is a specially designed accelerator to support rapid identification, development, and deployment of ideas and innovations that solve a variety of problems posed by COVID-19, that is the coronavirus. It is supported by SSIP, MIT, AMC, Ahmedabad Smart City, TIE Ahmedabad, InnoCity, MJFF, NSTDB, and Industries Commissionerate of Gujarat. We have currently received more than 280 plus applications from all across the Indias and are scrutinizing the applications. The deadline to apply to this accelerator program is 7th of May, and it's a continuous scrutiny that we do. So about the speaker, Anvesha, so she's a passionate marketer. She's currently responsible for the digital marketing strategy of L'Oreal Professional in India. Her journey started with Google, where she worked closely with clients like Sephora, Gap, Jet Airways to help them build successful strategies for marketing campaigns on Google Search, Display, and YouTube. Before this, she set up online marketing team at travelyauri.com and paved the way for digital transformation at the company. She was also head of digital media at Asian Paints. Recently, she was placed among the top 30 digital marketeer in India by ET Brand Equity, as well as among the top 100 marketeers in India by Adobe in 2019. So please welcome our expert today. Anvesha, over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see. I can see almost 40 of you all here. So, thank you for joining on this Saturday. Thank you, Keyur, for the introduction and for setting this up. Um, so, this is a very different world that we are living in today, and these are different times. But the digital marketing strategy per se, in terms of what is the strategy for a company, how should a company think of digital, the basics remain the same. They don't change, right? And so I lead digital marketing for L'Oreal for their professional products. And I think about a decade ago, I was maybe sitting in one such seminar and learning about digital marketing. And today here I am to share all my learnings that I've had in the last few years, right? And some of you would have businesses that you're trying to take off the ground. Some of you must have businesses that you just set up. So basically, let's what in the next 1 hour, what I would try to do is to share my learnings over the years. Also, how do we really craft a digital marketing strategy? Um, I will spend half an hour taking you guys to a presentation that I have put together. This is more to just direct the flow. Of course, I would love to hear from you all in terms of what is it that you want to know, and then we'll have a Q&A session where you can ask your questions. Okay, so I'll just share my screen.
So before we begin, I'd like to tell attendees that they can ask the questions in the Q&A feature that we have here, and we will try to take all the questions in this session. Yeah.
Okay. So I will just share my screen. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, it is visible now.
Okay, great. Cool. So The first thing that I'd like to begin with is how do you really have a checklist for online presence? Because the first step is that how do you really build a presence online? So you need to have at least a hygiene presence on all of these channels. So I just list out the important channels that you need. So the first is domain names. Now, what I mean by domain name is not just a website. What it means is that, of course, setting up the website comes a lot later after you set up your business, because you're conceptualizing the design and everything. But be very quick to acquire a domain name once you've decided the name of your business. In fact, in 1995, P&G had acquired domain names like badbreath.com, pimples.com, stains.com, because basically they really wanted to have that authority on these keywords, that when somebody is searching for something like this, they appear. Okay, so it's very important to really have authority over the category that you're looking at. So of course, it's not very easy to then own these now, but at least have certain variations of your domain names. Also check for them, how much are they available for, are they available. Like General Motors, they have gm.com as the official website, but they have generalmotors.com, they have chevy.com, chevrolet.com, all of that belongs to them. So basically it's important to make sure that you have reserved that for yourself. It's important. The other is, of course, you want to have a presence on the main social media handles, which is you have to have a handle on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Each of them serves a different purpose. Maybe you might not really, look at building a few of them that much. Like for example, if you're a brand that's highly lifestyle focused and visual, maybe you're not using Twitter that much. The presence on Twitter is just important because consumers use it a lot to reach out to you for queries, for complaints, and hence it is a channel which is important as a business to be present on if you want to interact with your audience. The other is that if you have a business which is also has a physical presence, you should definitely have a Google My Business account. By having, I mean that it should be complete in all aspects. You should be using all the features there in terms of the pictures, the post, all the details that need to be put there, and you should answer all reviews. Okay. The other is LinkedIn company page. It is important for you especially if you're a B2B setup, also to attract prospective employees. So LinkedIn is also important as a hygiene presence for sure. And the other thing is a built for mobile website. Uh, what happens is that when you're working with a team for to deliver the design of the website, say for example, you always end up working on your laptop, and you're looking at the laptop for the design, and you look at it and it looks nice to you. But always open the designs, always look at everything on the mobile, because mobile is going to have almost 80 to 90 or even more percent of traffic that will come to your to your portal through that. Hence it is very important that all aspects check if everything is fitting into different screens, if it's optimized for iOS, Android, etc. Are you able to get the view is clear, right? So the flow needs to be very, very seamless for a mobile platform. Moving on, what I want to do is I want to just take you through also the steps that you need to create that strategy. Okay. So the first step is, of course, that you need to know your audience. Now, audience could be businesses, audience could be end consumers, audience could be both. Whoever you're talking to, it's important that you profile them really clearly. Now, of course, it's not like you don't know your customers, you don't know who you're building the product or service for. But what is more important on digital is that because you have such amazing targeting options, like you have very, very granular targeting options in terms of life stages, in terms of interests, in terms of the way you can reach out to them at income levels, or what are their passions. So because of that, it's important that you build a very detailed buyer persona. Now we have it in our heads, or we know through market research, but it is important to pen it down and build certain buyer persona. You have some good online templates available, you can download them and use them. But what's important is at least you should know these, at least to basic, at a basic level, have an understanding of the entire age group, location, solutions they need from your business, how they research your products online, and what are their favorite social media channels and their favorite customer support channels. So this is these 3 points in the last, which is how do they research online, favorite social media channels, and favorite customer support channel. You'll have to do a bit of research to know what are these people doing. So it could even be like you do a research for the focus group of the kind of potential customers that you think you have for your business. You can go to them and ask them about these and then get an understanding. There are lots of tools available for you to understand which what is the kind of demographics that's there are reports that tell you what kind of demographics or what kind of people access what kind of platforms. But it's extremely important to know all these things, because that's what will decide what should be your priority platform on social media. How should you target if you're using different channels of marketing, right? So once you have an understanding about who is your audience, uh, what you could do is that, if you have ever seen a Facebook ad manager, if you've not, after this session, if you have a Facebook, just make a Facebook business page and just go to promote. Okay, there is a promote option. In that, if you actually put the interest, so suppose you have built a buyer persona, suppose you sell pet foods and you've built a buyer persona, so you can actually include you can actually put these here. You can say that it's a you're looking for pet owners, and then once you put that, it actually gives you a complete audience, which tells you, once you have completed all the fields, it actually tells you, suppose this was the location, this was the age. So then you actually see people who match this, so you know that these are the behaviors, and it gives you a potential reach, which means that Facebook, which is pretty much almost all of the online world uh, that you're going to target, is going to be, say, 260,000 people. So you know how many people in your persona are actually present. So what is your potential reach? So it's important to do this exercise for you to be able to size the audience, map the audience, and build your strategy accordingly. What other thing that you should do, apart from defining the audience, so once you know that this is the audience, and suppose you start your campaigns accordingly, you build a campaign, it's important to keep listening to your audience. Now, what I mean by listening to your audience is, of course, you want to be able to assess if they are finding your product useful. There have been times where companies have actually realigned their target audience themselves because of the social listening. Basically, they listened to the mentions about their brands. They actually saw what people are talking about their product, and they went and tweaked the actual audience as well. So I'll just give you an example. Like Barclays, they had I think about, it's been some time, it's a few years ago, that they launched an app called Pingit, which was basically like, say, similar to, say, Paytm, where you can actually transfer money through a contact number, so just a mobile number. So very convenient way of transferring funds, basically, right? So when they launched this, they of course kept a age limit of 18 plus. Now, soon after they launched the app, within about 15 days, they realized that people are actually writing things like these, that, I have sent money to my kids. So now 16 years and 17-year-olds, a lot of them were in colleges, staying away from their parents, and they thought this was a very convenient way to send money to them, but they were not able to, because they had an age limit of 18. you start from 18. So they had a cutoff age of 18, right? So they very, very quickly looked at this, and within 2 weeks they said, okay, so now the app is for 16 plus. So basically this really helped them to understand, okay, what is it being really used for? And while I define my target audience in a certain way, digital is telling me, and my social media listening is telling me that I should tweak my audience. So there are times when you might want to build, actually look at whether you have a certain audience in mind, but actually who are the users of your product. The other thing that they also realized is that they had an option of checking the balance very quickly. So they had built it as a side feature, but they realized that this is something that people are really appreciating. They're really liking the fact that it's a quick balance check for them, instead of having to go and sign into the account and really look at the balance. So what they did is then they launched a separate app doing this, because while this was just built as a side feature in this, they actually saw that this is being really a great utility for people. This is actually quite many years ago, but this is what companies need to do, is basically you listen to the audience. The other example is Netflix. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Netflix sock. Basically, not Netflix socks were built keeping in mind when they had a lot of people talking about falling asleep in between shows. So now they actually created socks which had sensors. So when you're watching the binge watching late night, and if you happen to fall asleep midway, it is going to pause your show. So basically people used to say that, oh, I slept all night and I only to realize when I wake up, I've completed the series without really watching it, right? And I think Netflix is something that we are almost all of us are looking at these days. Like binge watching is the one of the biggest problems of the rich right now, is what they say. So what to binge watch is what we think about. So imagine they are looking at smaller aspects like these are as well, not just about what content they should show you, what is the most best content for you. They're actually looking at smaller aspects as well. So that makes it very important to listen to your audience. Okay. Once you have an understanding of the audience, it's important to have an overview of what is happening around in the ecosystem as well. So for a market analysis, there are a few things that you should definitely do, especially when you're a new business. Look at, and actually it should be an always on approach, that you look at, websites and SEO rankings of companies that are close to you as competitors. I've just listed down tools in the second line, SimilarWeb, Ahrefs, which you can use to look at this. They have free versions as well as premium versions. You can choose to use whichever suits you. You should definitely look at social media in terms of, there's Likealizer as well, which is not mentioned here, but they basically tell you about the social media presence, about engagement rates, about what is the frequency of posting by a competitor. So it basically gives you a consolidated view of what competitors are doing in the social media space. It's important to look at, by PPC, I mean pay-per-click, which means when you're actually running ads on Google. So that is something that you should also see in terms of what are other competitors doing for that. When you look at content, you also should see themes that are trending, who are the top creators, content creators, what is the kind of content that's going up. So these tools you can use. And you also should look at email marketing by competitors. What are they sending? What are the kind of results that they're getting? So some of these tools are pretty useful. There are more as well. You can choose to use whatever works for you. But the idea is that you need to have a complete 360-degree view of what your competition is doing online as well, because you might know them as you would have done a lot of SWOT analysis, you would have done a lot of research on the industry, on what they're doing. But it's important to also see these aspects and map yourself where you are, or create goals for yourself as to where you want to reach looking at these. I'll give you a good starting point for benchmarking. Okay. Um, the other is that it's also important. So, of course, SEO is an important piece. By SEO, I mean that you are able to rank in Google search results in the top positions. So, SEO is also important. But a keyword theme research or a keyword theme or a theme research is not just for SEO. It is also for basically understanding what is your equivalent of USP of business on online, which means that if you are really running a business online, you're running a business on ground, in terms of the online presence, what is it that people are going to search for you, or what is it that you should actually talk, because people are actually looking for those kinds of keywords. So you could use tools like keyword tool by Google. You could use Google Trends. It gives you a good perspective of how the keywords are trending over the years, which are the rising queries. I've given you a snapshot of Uber Suggest, which just tells you very simply, if you had put something like a kids wear, it gives you a lot more keywords around the same theme. It gives you the volume, CPC. So if you are the idea is that if you're a very new startup, it's difficult to get the highest rank in paid. This is for paid media. Highest rank or get a good bargain in the CPC, because when you're actually bidding for these keywords, in keywords which are very short. So 50% of actually searches on Google are more than 4 words long. Okay. So while you would start out with such certain keywords like kids wear, what you should actually do is try and look at long tail. By long tail, I mean, think about it, when you're really looking for something which you are very, very interested in, you might type out a longer query. You won't just type a very generic query. Like if I want to buy, to be very simple example, running shoes. Okay. If I know what kind of running shoes I want, or if I know that, I might not just only type running shoes. I will say buy running shoes for women, or I might say running shoes for women red. Like if I have something specific in mind. Now the thing is that on these keywords, competition is usually lesser, and hence you can bid on them, because if you see, the longer the keyword, usually the bids are lower, right? So if you see these and of course it's not showing the full list, but if you were to say with colors or with more details, it kind of lowers the bid. So you're able to afford that when you're actually looking at a paid search. And also look at, if you are a business that is also has a local physical presence, please do look at keywords which are near me searches, because people are really looking for it, and it's very important because it might have a higher cost per click, but ultimately it will help drive people to nearest to you, because it shows the results that are nearest to the person, and hence there is a very, very high possibility of a footfall conversion. So look at that. Right, keywords everywhere is also a very simple plugin that you can put in your Chrome, and it helps you. You should also do some hashtag research. Now, one is for SEO, one is for SEM. There is also you should know what is the kind of content themes that you should create. What is it that you should look at for content when you're creating? So you should do hashtag research in terms of what are brands posting, or what is being posted online uh, on subjects that are related to your business. And you could look at some of these tools for finding that out. So it's important to have your research completely handy before you even think of what is it that I want to do. Don't start by saying, oh, what should I do on Facebook? That's not the way you should start thinking. First, look at everything, or every information in internet is amazing in terms of the information that you get. First, do your research, and then you could sit and build something for your brand. Right? So once you have all this intelligence gathered in, the next is to define the success metrics. So I have just mentioned a very simple model which was evolved by Avinash Kaushik, which says see, think, care, and do. So now it's basically very similar to a consumer funnel that you would look at. You could possibly compare this to an IDA model, which is awareness, interest, desire, and action. So this is just more like what is the thing that you would want the audience to do. So what happens is that you would obviously have, for every initiative or every campaign that you're running, you would have a certain objective in mind. So look at what is the objective that that particular campaign is looking at. Also look at the objective what every creative is doing. So if you have a post, what is the objective of that post? Is it to see, to think, to do, or to care? What do you want the audience to do after they see your communication, right? And then if you look at these blue boxes which says largest addressable qualified audience, which means that when you're looking at this aspect, you can actually you are actually looking at what is, and if you remember, we had built that say a 260,000 to 70,000 kind of an audience that was there. So that was your basically your potential audience. So this is basically your audience, which is your qualified audience. So this is obviously the largest pool. After that, you see largest addressable audience with some commercial intent. So while these all people might be relevant for you, but they don't might not everyone wants to buy, right? So maybe a little bit of inclination towards buying something in your category is something that you could look at. So it's more of consideration for your brand. Okay, this is more in the awareness space. This is in the consideration space. The other is where you're actually wanting them to take some action, which is largest addressable qualified audience with loads of commercial intent, and also who are who have maybe they know about your brand already because you have really invested on these. So it's important to actually have a combination of all these three, right? So internet gives you great options of remarketing, which means that if you have spoken to this audience, you can actually go and remarket to a part of this audience which lies in this bucket. And then once you have talked to this audience, you can actually go to a part of this which talks lies in this bucket, right? So which means that you could actually, so this means basically a lot of your website visitors could be these people, people who have interacted with your videos, people who have interacted with category videos would be this, people who have interacted with your videos could be this. And hence you want to talk to them and say that, hey, you know about my brand, you know about my product service, why don't you try it out, right? And of course, again, this is also super important, both for B2B and B2C, because B2B works heavily on referrals. B2C also works heavily on word of mouth by reviews, ratings, what people are saying. So you need to have people saying positive things about you. So it's important to have this aspect covered as well. Okay. So just if I want to just put this in an example, like if you were a health related company and you were looking at these, so you would say that these are this is what how you would define health conscious people and then influencers who lead active lifestyles. So basically you have defined this is the audience that you're going to look at. Now for consideration, you're saying health conscious people who lead active lifestyles and are considering their latest nutritional choices. You also know that they are in the set, but they are also considering this. Okay, so you know that they are slightly lower in the funnel for you to go after. And the third is people when you're saying that they are actually at a later stage of a purchase. And then if you have this company which is this products, and let's say they have purchased multiple best products. So basically you should build this for your own audience, define it, and then hence you look at different channels accordingly. Okay. It's also important to have measurement metrics. So if you're looking at this, okay, uh, these are just a very few examples of metrics. You could have your own metrics, but the idea is that it is important to put a number to each of these as to what is it that you're looking for and to measure it. So if you're saying it's a C kind of an awareness kind of a campaign or awareness kind of initiatives that you're doing, then it should be more about having more visits to your website or having more people watching your videos, or how do you really look at an index increase in brand awareness using brand lift studies, for example? How do you get engagement on your social media posts? Okay. The other is when you're looking at consideration, you might want to look at a slightly more in depth in terms of how are people clicking on the ads, how much are they really looking at when they come to the website, so where all do they go, and how much time do they spend, etc. And once you're looking at actually the do part of it, if you have an e-commerce, of course your cart abandonment rate becomes important. If you have a lead form, it makes to it's important to see what are the kind of drop-offs that are happening. If you don't have an e-com channel, it's also important to still see what is the kind of interest, however you are measuring that. How is it really, what is the closest to the final touch point in terms of sale that the person is reaching, so what is the percentage of that, and hence what is the ROI on it. And when you're talking about, of course, care, loyalty, it's more about a lifetime value, repeat purchases, and how much would they want to recommend you. So it's important to put a metric to each of these and to measure it accordingly. If you just if you just think of it in your head as these buckets, it's easier to come up with metrics and just put them in place for you. Don't just only go by metrics like those are vanity metrics, which are like, views, likes, shares, impressions, clicks. They are all vanity metrics by vanity metrics. I mean, they're just there on the platform for a media efficiency perspective, which tell you how well the media is working for you. But if you want to look at it as an overall business efficiency perspective, how is it really running, adding results for you, you need to look at these clarity metrics. So that's why I wanted to make this distinction, that there are metrics which are there on the platform, there are metrics which you might want to look at for your own business. Okay. And once you're done with defining success and measurement, it's important to set a budget, right? So it's a tricky question, it's chicken and egg situation, because you don't know how much budget you should put in, and you wouldn't know how much budget you should start with, right? So there are three ways of looking at it. Budget is a percentage of revenue. So basically, for businesses which have a potential revenue that they have defined for themselves, you could define it as a percentage of revenue. Usually businesses which are between 1 to 5 years old end up putting 12 to 20%. Businesses that are older end up putting about 12% to 15% or lesser, because they know that they don't want to invest so much on branding anymore. Initially you might want to invest a lot more in building your brand as well, and then maybe if your brand is if you might want to focus a lot more on the C aspect, because people don't know about your brand yet, right? So that's a percentage of revenue. The other way is also like a tactic based approach, which means that if you've already run multiple campaigns in the past, you might intuitively also know what would work for you as for the best ROI. So then you could just add up whatever it is, that if you want to do this much Google search, this much social media, I know I'm going to do all of these, and hence I know the budgets also, because you would have historical campaigns to guide you, right? So that also can define your budget. The other way is, of course, the most efficient way is ROI based, which is where you're actually defining the business outcome first, and then you're saying that, okay, if this is the business outcome that I am going to be looking at, this is how I'm going to be setting my budget. Okay. This is also good to build a strategy and not just a campaign. This is more like you are actually looking at what is the final ROI that I'm going to get at the end of it, right? So of course, easier said than done. It is not easy. So I will just take you through a few steps for ROI based prediction for budget, which basically is how do you really look at it in two ways. Okay, one is when it's a direct response. By direct response, I mean that you are actually looking at an end conversion, like a sale or a lead or a e-commerce transaction, right? And the other is when you're looking at something like a brand awareness. How do you assess ROI there? It's difficult to map an ROI to that. So just showing you how do you really look at budgets in both cases. So I am going to talk about first the ROI, the direct response based. And in direct response, I've taken an example for a lead because that's slightly, that has slightly more steps involved. When you have an e-commerce on your website, it's easier because you just have the conversion and you know all the details like an average order value, etc. So it's easier for you to go back and say, okay, what is exactly the sale that's happening for each and every penny that I'm spending, right? So if you were to look at okay, I'll come back to this later. I'll just first take you through the direct response. So suppose you have, you have a certain, so if you say that I need at least 10 leads per month or 10 sale per month, if suppose you're a big B2B business with a high ticket value, you say that 10 sale per month, final sale is important for me. Okay, so that's obviously as a business, that's how you would think, and that should be your starting point. Now, if you're saying that I want 10 sales, you need to understand what is your close rate. That means out of every all the leads that you get, how many really end up converting. So you know that there's a close rate. So you would have that for your business. You could start with a number otherwise based on industry predictions, and then you could evolve your own numbers. So you know that if you want to do 10 sales, you need 50 leads. Okay. So now when you know that you want 50 leads, you say, that there is going to be a drop off when people fill a lead form on your website. So suppose you have a website which actually says get a quote, okay, or start a trial, however. So you have a lead form. So now you will have a typical conversion rate of 2% to 5% on a website for the lead form, and so by conversion, I mean people who actually fill the form to people who actually become a qualified lead for you. Okay. I hope you're getting that drift. So basically you're actually going up down the funnel, because as you go down the funnel, it keeps narrowing down. So when you're going to do that, you know that these many visitors you need. Out of as many visitors that have come to the website, these are the people who fill the form, right? So suppose you have 1,000 visitors, you know that out of them, these many fill the form, and hence you have 50 leads, right? So you need 50 form fills for 10 sales. So then you go back and you actually calculate the number of visitors that you need. So once you know the website visitors, then you can actually look at what is the kind of, you can ignore this, is more on impressions, but what is the kind of clicks that you would need, because you can actually see a cost per click. Now, how do you see a cost per click? When you go to, suppose, an AdWords account, you will be given a prediction. So if you see, even in Uber Suggest, if you saw where I had shown you, it gives you an average cost per click, which is basically an estimate of what is the amount that you would pay for one click. Or if you see on the left, it is more, you have to look at what is the amount that you will have to pay per impression if you're buying by impression. Okay. So when you know that, okay, these many clicks I need, you actually go to that cost per click, whatever is the one that's an average for all their keywords. And then you say, okay, I need 1,000 clicks, and hence this should be my media spend. And hence this is my cost per acquisition. So this is how you basically, so this is of course done at a very granular level. You can do it more at an integrated level about all your campaign, or, what is the kind of overall conversion that you're getting, or you could do it like by social media, from Google search, from these channels. This is how I'm getting my conversion. Okay. And this is how, hence I should plan my media. So it's important to really look at that aspect when you're looking at planning your budget. The other bit is when you're planning for branding. So basically, if you don't have a very, if you want the person to just see and consider and not just really look at take an action, then how do you really look at that? So you have seen this, we had already defined a potential audience, say for example. So now what happens is that when you know your potential audience, what Facebook also tells you is that you actually can define. So once you have the reach, okay, that's defined, you basically, the moment you put your budget here, you are going to keep getting your, you're going to keep getting your, keep getting your reach. Okay, so there is basically a curve which basically tells you that to reach these many people at a certain frequency, What do we mean by frequency? How many times will each person see your ad in a week, say for example? Okay, so when you know that when you see an ad on TV, you don't see it once, or when you see an ad on social media, we don't see it once, you see it more than once, right? So that's your frequency. How many times in a week do you see it? And your reach is basically how many people are you wanting that they see the ad. So once you have both the parameters, so you say that I want to reach, if my potential audience was certain a certain audience, I say that this was my potential audience, and this is the percentage that I can reach. Okay, this is the frequency. The moment you put your budget, this is going to keep changing, right? So you will need to know what is the inflection point. So it could either be this is the maximum that I could afford, or this could be like, oh, at least I need to reach these many people, hence I need to define this budget. Okay, the other is that how do you really define the frequency? So if these are certain factors which basically define your frequency. If you're a very new brand, just to put it in short, if you're a very new brand, of course you need to have a higher frequency because you want more people to know. If you have a complicated product or a complicated messaging, it's important to have a higher frequency. If you are an established brand of something was simple to understand, you could still have a lower frequency. It also, of course, depends on the seasonality or the kind of sale that you are really targeting. So this basically depends on that. I'll just go back to that slide which talks about the different aspects. So just to give you a perspective that, if you're looking at something which is, which is in these different buckets, you actually look at, so if you see the Google AdWords, say a cost per click model works more for the lower end of the funnel, but something like a social media works across actually. And something like videos work on the upper end of the funnel more than the lower end, because people don't usually click too much from a video to take an action. So that's how you would also define your channels, that what is it that I want to do, whether I want to use YouTube or Facebook or Google search, or invest in different channels. That's how you are going to look at it. So influencer marketing and all of that would lie on the upper end of the bucket mostly. Yeah. So, and the last bit is, once you have done all of this, it's important to measure, iterate, and optimize. It's not only important to, look at the measurement in terms of what you're doing, because all the platforms are going to tell you. Google Analytics is something that you should go every day, and you should for your website, and see the entire flow of the visitors every day. What is also important is that you look at an A/B testing. By A/B testing, I mean that you test two different designs of your web page, two designs of, some, if it's an important campaign, look at two different placements of, what different images that you can use in your advertisements. So always test and learn, and always keep iterating in terms of what is it that is working well for you. So while the platform itself can give you suggestions, there are certain tools as well which helps you optimize. So if you want to optimize a lead form is a good tool. Unbounce is a good tool to see A/B testing on website. Okay, so it's important to just know. Don't intuitively always think you know everything about the business. You know what people want, so here it is. Think about it more as a learning process, that you're going to evolve it as you go along, and hence you want to see what's working for you in terms of conversions. Second important thing is that keep patience, because it is so instant. We think we put something and we start getting results tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. You need to really wait. First month is just about setting it up. Second month is about optimization. You will only start seeing some results from actual results from third month, and post that you can start optimizing and really looking at lowering your costs per conversion. Okay, so it's not going to happen instantly for anyone. The other is, this is a personal thing that I also follow, which is a 70-20-10 rule that I follow for my digital marketing efforts. That 70% of the budget you put on things that are definitely going to work, which are the tried and tested methods, which are something which is the most important for that objective. 20% of the budget you put on something which is something that is a test which you could try. So say suppose you've been using all the time Google search for leads. Try a display or a programmatic display for a certain audience. Okay, so 20% of your budget. And then you say, okay, 10%, let me just go wild, let me just do something very different. So suppose for 10%, I just say, okay, I just rope in certain influencers, I'll ask them to get people to try. I mean, it's not exactly the most wildest thing to do, but what I mean is that when my actual first thing was to look at just Google search, I will possibly look at 2 different channels as well to try with a lesser budget to put on it, and then see how it works for me. So it's important to keep iterating. Don't just put a template. This is what works for me, and hence these are the 5 things that I will do. Maybe try TikTok, try different channels. What is it, depending on the category of your business and your industry, what is it that works the most? So with that, what I will do is, I have a few examples. Keyur, we are at,
Yes, Anvesha.
yeah, so I have a few examples to share, but I was thinking that shall I do that, or shall I just jump into the questions first and then maybe like take them along with the questions as well?
Yes, that would work. We can take questions as well.
Okay, so would you be able to help me with what questions?
Sure. So first we'll cover the live questions. So, there are 3 questions. So Alan has a question on his product. So I would read it out to you.
Yeah, I can read it here. It's okay with you that
Okay.
there's such a product. Uh, Honestly, Keyur, I would really want to look at more strategic questions first,
Mm-hmm.
which are generic so that everyone can benefit from it instead of a very product or industry specific question.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're saying, I can just go to the next one, which says blogs can be used for online marketing, regular
Yes.
um, yes, with it, to your question for blogs. Uh, so in blogs, use the 80-20 rule. By 80-20 rule, I mean 80% should talk about something that's not about your product, 20% should have product push, because that is the only way that you can attract good audience. I mean, it's a trade off. If you're going to keep talking about only your products and services, then it's people are not going to read, really genuinely read your blogs. Okay, so it's important to have an information. So either your content should inspire, educate, or entertain. At least one of these 3 things the content should do, and then only people are going to come and read it up, and hence you are going to get the desired outcome. I can actually show you. I have an example of 1 second. Possibly show you a. Sorry, just go to the next slide. Yeah, so if you have this, okay, so I'll just show you the website that they have. So it's just basically a very simple website called Vistia. They basically have products that are for help professionals shoot videos, okay, and you actually see that they have put in a very very different way in which they've done this. They actually have very hilarious videos that they put up about shooting videos, and how are people using videos, and some education tutorials as well. And they also had a very interesting challenge that they did on their on their platform, which basically had uh, one agency had to create ads for the same thing using 3 different budgets: $1,000, $10,000, and $100,000. And they wanted to see, and then they've put it in the documentary showing how have people done this. So basically it's about using a lot of engaging medium to actually talk about it, rather than just putting out just boring content. And they don't do too much of product push. So if that answers your question, that's what you should do. Usage of YouTube help, I think YouTube is basically a platform which is going to, YouTube is what it depends on the objective that you have. Uh, the good part about YouTube is that it has an organic discovery to it. So at Asian Paints, we had run a campaign called Where the Heart Is. Basically, had campaign which was talking about celebrity homes. I mean, some of you might have watched it. So it basically talked about celebrity homes, and they talk about their favorite corners in the house, etc. And we saw that this content had a 30%, more than a 30% discoverability organically. It's very, very difficult to have a good reach organically. If you create good content that people are going to relate with, it is going to have a good organic discovery. Otherwise you will have to spend on ads, which is not as easy and to sustain most of the time, and also expensive. So you would, if you are creating ads, then try and talk very directly about your company and run very, very short videos, like a 10-seconder or a 20-seconder at the most. If you're creating some good long form content, it is going might have good organic discovery. Try to make it very, very relatable to the audience rather than only a big product push. So that should be the strategy that you look at on YouTube. It can definitely help you. Of course, it's great for brand awareness. It is great. You could also tie up with YouTube influencers to talk about your brand. So that is another way of doing this. But yes, it is important. Okay, we have a few
So,
more. I'll also take up specific questions if we have the time, but I just want to look at.
Vikram has a very broad question.
Yeah. What are your tips of startup to zero very low budget? Okay. Uh, so this is, of course, then you could, so there are ways to do this in terms of using then something which is very, very disruptive in the way that you think about. So like, if I don't know if you have seen the Airbnb example I'll show to you. If you know about how Airbnb actually went to people. So this is when Airbnb had just started out. They actually saw these listings on Craigslist, where people were putting up rent houses for rent, and just for people to use. And they just sent these users, Craigslist people who were actually putting up their houses, and just send them these emails, right? And talking about their brand, and this is how they actually built it. Okay, so it is of course, you have to use a very disruptive strategy to be able to, when you're saying that it's a very low budget for online outreach, because you have to spend a little money. The reality is that this, like social media demands a lot of money when you put in the budgets. So of course there is very little reach unless your video becomes completely viral, which is a very which could happen or not happen. The good ways of using these kinds of things is you could do a lot of referral marketing, like run contests. So you start with small focus groups, and then you try and help them spread the word across their networks. That's the best way to look at it, because that has a cascading effect. So you basically define, so there's a graph which tells you these are the early adopters. Basically, you know that these are the people who are going to really adopt your technology or adopt your product the easiest, the earliest. Okay, or you could do some contests. So a very easy way is contests. When you see something for free, people do jump in to participate. So like YouTube actually gave iPad Nano the data users who uploaded videos and invited friends, and that's how they made it so big, because they just wanted people to just keep putting videos. Okay, there was an example that I had of also a coding website. So they did a New Year resolution challenge that if you're going to code, and so here you can do it for free, and then you this is your New Year challenge, learn coding this year. So either you give a free sample in whatever way you can to people to try it out once, it makes a lot of sense, or you use some disruptive strategies which are going to tell you that this can work. Or else whatever small budget you have, so if you are say a B2B company, look at more like something which is into remarketing, something that is email marketing, in terms of reaching out to prospects on LinkedIn. Or if you are a B2C, look at heavily on social media. I'm just saying this is if you have a very, very low budget. Otherwise, social media makes complete sense for B2B as well. So it's not like it is something which is meant for one over the other, but I'm just saying that you have to prioritize your channels then in that way. Okay. What is the next question we have? Okay. Which
A
one?
question from Akash Agarwal. It's in the chat box. What is a good way to analyze the CAC EOV metric for emerging D2C startup?
What is the?
Good way to analyze the CAC AOV metric for emerging D2C startup. How much should be a good benchmark to compare?
I have no answer to this, and I would not like to answer this because the problem is that it is very, very, very dependent on the industry. So you cannot really say what works one for one type is going to be relevant for others, because it completely depends on your average order value, on the kind of CPCs or CPMs that you have for your industry. So if you look at something like a very transactional e-commerce kind of ways, you will see cost per clicks and CPMs in like 5 rupees, 2 rupees. If you look at real estate, it goes up to 100 rupees. So it is very difficult to be able to look at that. Okay, what is important is that when you are going to start out by a certain with a certain uh, value, you will want to just keep optimizing it. Just see it lowers as you go along, and you will always have tools that are going to give you benchmarks. So if you go to Facebook, you're going to have benchmarks which are going to tell you this is what it is. If you go to Google, it's going to tell you. So it's basically, and why I keep saying Google, Facebook, because they give you a perspective and then you can use it across other channels that you're using. So I mean, I don't think there's one answer that fits to anyone. It's a very, very personal. When you're going to really start using your digital marketing strategies is when you will realize that that is how it should be. So that's what I would like to say for this.
Okay. So we have one question from a Facebook, person. So we are, broadcasting this live on Facebook. So it's also a generic question. How do you see SMEs and other brick and mortar businesses about digital marketing post-COVID era?
Okay. So I mean, only if I knew, only if I knew for my own business as well. So basically, it's a very different environment that we are living in. Consumer habits are changing, right? And you know that, but we don't know how long they will be there for. For they're going to stay. But the main thing is that you need to understand that it's important to have a very agile approach right now, be it large businesses, be it small businesses, medium businesses. It is just about how do you really quickly adapt to how consumers are thinking about your business. So if they are not really looking too much, thinking too much about you right now, how do you make an attempt to talk to them? Okay, so the idea is to strike a fine balance between not sounding opportunistic but being empathetic and reaching out to them. And when you actually see the markets opening up, there are two very extreme predictions that are happening in the industry. One is that people are going to hold on to their money because they would want to really look at safety measures, and health is going to come first, and they're going to realize, oh, I can live a very good life without really looking at all the other things that I was, services that I was consuming. So it could be that, and that could really affect the SMEs and small businesses or businesses that have just been set up because they might not have enough demand. Uh, Again, it depends on the industry that you're in. I mean, I don't know what it depends on. Completely depends on the category of your business. The other prediction is also that because a lot of, especially the upper middle class and middle class segments, who've been saving a lot of money by sitting at home because they've not really spent too much, because they have been deprived of all the pampering that they do for themselves, or the socializing that they do, the money they spend, they might actually end up spending more. So it could go both ways. Of course, there will be a lot more different in the way people conduct business for a very long time in terms of social distancing rules, hygiene, etc. It depends on the business that you're in. Virtual is going to become a big piece. If you're an SME, you could actually get somebody to freelance for you from a distant location as well. Like, people have really understood that it is not you know really dependent on having people sitting in office for you. So you could look at that. It could be in the ways of working that you do. Like, you could have half people coming to office one day, half people coming on the other day, and have one day when everyone comes together. So it is going to obviously have businesses rethink about how they look at the way they conduct business and look at reinventing ways of working. But it completely depends on sector that your business is in, honestly. Is there, Keyur, what is the
Yeah.
next question that you would like me to take?
So we can take a question from Ghosh, asked in the Q&A. What are the digital marketing activities that you would suggest for luxury fashion brands to convert their online audience into customers?
Okay, this is like, I could take I mean, it could be a 1 hour conversation because like luxury brands, it's a very, so I will just try to give you a quick, maybe like an overview. So again, I don't know what category you're in. If you're in a very visual category, then of course Instagram is the place to be in, where you would want to engage with influencers, have people talking about your brand. It is also important to have be featured in top publications online, have a lot of good things being talked about you on publications, get yourself featured in a few these high-end luxury magazines, because that really helps people achieve this. The only thing is that of course you have to have that fine line between being too massy about your communication. While you want to reach a lot of people, you need to make sure that your product or your service is still being marked as something that is exclusive, because when it's luxury, people, you don't want to become over accessible. So just think of it that way. Don't go all out on Facebook and Instagram as a massy brand and just keep doing just keep doing contests or giveaways and all of that in order to, you will have to have that kind of a strategy in mind, which basically, so if you look at the Instagram pages of Chanel, Burberry, etc., you will actually see the way they look at Instagram versus if you see a paper boat or a in fact I have one example. It's not exactly luxury versus but if you were to look at, so this is FedEx. This is like a very interesting example where if you look at FedEx and if you think about it, it is not something which you would expect to have a great Instagram presence, but they have an amazing Instagram presence. The way they actually have built their handle is amazing. If you look at Evelyn, which is apparel, the way they look at the color theme. So your color theme in terms of how you present yourself, everything becomes important. And if you look at the captions that they use, single one line captions, nothing more, versus if you look at Paperboat, so lively and so it all depends on how you're positioning yourself as well on these different platforms, not just using them right. And it is important to have those more of word of mouth and trying to make it an exclusive club. Make it look at groups on these even Facebook, which have these exclusive club kind of appeal to it. Use apps which have these kinds of referrals offers, etc., which are very very niche in that sense, so that you're able to keep your positioning that way.
So we have a quick question from Dheeraj. Just a
Sure.
second. How to avoid Google penalties?
Google penalties.
Penalties, I don't know in which context.
I think he means by SEO. I'm assuming he means by search engine optimization. I think the best way and the easiest, because Google has had lakhs of updates that they do to their SEO engine every day.
Hmm.
It's like every day you have a new rule that's applied and you don't know how to really go by it. I think the easiest way and the best way is to be authentic, be original, and keep content on top. Do not look at kitna keyword, how much should I put as a keyword density, what is it that I should put, what are the, just look at genuine content that's helping your audience, that will help you rank highest, the easiest. And do not keep thinking of course it's important to look at what are the ways in which you can really do a lot of link building. But when you're actually looking at off page optimization, basically looking at people mentioning you outside of your website, be very careful of who is mentioning you. Don't get mentioned by almost everyone under the sun. That actually negatives gives you a negative publicity and even a negative ranking. So make sure that you are not doing any black hat SEO. You're not doing anything which is which is dubious. And I think as long as you're that, you should be sorted. I mean, if that's what you mean by Google penalties, I'm assuming.
So we'll take 2 or 3 more questions from the RSVP form that we have got.
Sure.
So how effective is podcast vis-a-vis YouTube video?
So you know, it again is a very, these are very different medium. So it's not easy to compare one over the other. What I can do is just take you through the pros and cons of each, so you can decide what works for your business. YouTube, I think the one basic difference is that YouTube has a big organic reach as well. By organic reach, I mean the discoverability is way higher. Okay. Secondly, it's a visual medium. So a lot of times the retention is higher when you're also seeing and hearing versus only hearing, okay, or only seeing. And that is why videos have become the mainstream for digital. Okay, so it actually is something that is, if you're looking at something which is going to have a broad based reach, where you want to actually talk to a lot of people and you want to keep talking, keep getting discovered more easily, YouTube is the platform. If you're looking to, but podcast has its own niche in terms of people who listen to it. It depends on the category. If you're into something like health, fitness, inspirational, so it has to be a very very engaged audience on podcast. You are never going to go by the numbers, you are never going to go by the volumes. Like YouTube will have billions of views, maybe thousands of views. Podcast, you might not have those many, but the audience that is going to engage with you is going to be the one that is really really interested in the content. So that is one difference in the engagement level, because on YouTube you might just watch it and you are maybe not as invested in the content. But in podcast, if you're listening to a full podcast and if you're given that time to the podcast, you definitely have more interest in it. So one is the scale. Definitely podcast is lower in scale, but of course more it's a more invested audience but lesser. Secondly, in terms of organic discoverability, at least at present, YouTube definitely has a higher presence. Third is, if it's a podcast, you have to make it super interesting for somebody to be able to stick till the end and also to remember what you've said, because it's not a visual medium. So, I mean, it's just basically two different ways in which you can do it. Some companies also use it, a great way to do a different content created out of the same thing. Like you have a video as well, you have a podcast as well, then you have put it into a blog post transcript as well, and then you see what works for you, and then take it ahead like that. So I think you could try that as well.
So second last question is, which are the digital marketing strategies that work best for B2B service sector?
So for the B2B service sector, I think as I just mentioned, so a lot of it is about driving a lot of trials. First of all, it is important to have trials of people reaching out to you for quotes, right? So the important point becomes, of course, referrals and getting, how do you get people to learn more about your service? So it's extremely important. So I'll just, if I can actually show you just one example of a website which was Maersk. Yeah, so I'm just showing you this because it's really good in the way that if you see the Maersk website, it actually asks you your intention right at the start, whether you want to track shipments or you want to find office details or you're ready to ship, right? So it basically is actually funneling the audience right at the start. So you can actually show a very customized content to each of these three. It gives you an important way in which you can actually build your website as well. Like if it's very simply made. Okay, so when you're looking at something which is maybe complex also to understand, it is important to have a very simple communication. Webinars, white papers, having, and whenever you're doing, you putting out a lot of these white papers and all, always make it gated content. Ask people for their credentials before you give it out to them, because that's the way you collect leads. So those are basically even podcasts to some extent, which can actually talk about a very niche service, are important. LinkedIn is a very big tool, because you can use your sales navigator to reach out to prospective leads. You can actually reach out to leads through in mails as well. So of course the platforms are going to be more in that sense. Email marketing becomes extremely important, and remarketing to your website visitors is, I think, the main thing that all B2B should do very, very efficiently, in terms of reaching out to them again. So even if you're doing something on social media, remarket to them. I think that's the most important piece, because you want to keep building that funnel, and keep getting their lead down to the qualification stage.
So, last question to you would be, what is the future for digital marketing after, say, 10 years down the line?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would also love for someone to answer that for me. See, it's such an evolving space. If you look at it, even 5 years ago, it's so different of from what it is now. Some of the things that I really think are going to pick up a lot more in the future are going to be, one is automation. Not just about right now, not just about making things easier, but also looking at the current crisis as well. A lot of businesses are looking a lot more for automation, so that a lot of these operational processes, they're able to depend on do not depend on people or a physical presence. Hence you actually see the way in which businesses are going to invest in technology to automate certain processes. The other is, in terms of the entire AI and VR piece. We've been talking about it for a lot of years, but I think it is going to come a lot more to our real world as well, not just on digital. If you see the way retail stores have been evolving, how technology is being used in retail as well, in terms of enhancing the experience. So it's going to move completely to an experience oriented kind of the way we are looking at things. It's not going to be only about transactional. So everything is going to be about experience, whether it's your online experience, whether it's your offline experience, and the boundaries are going to merge. So there is going to be an increased integration between when you are going to walk into the store versus what you've done online. There's going to be a complete seamless integration. It happens now as well, but it's going to be a completely seamless integration later. Um, and you are going to see more and more people becoming part. So this is something that I look at it from a consumer behavior perspective. People are becoming more and more uh, participative in the brand. So in terms of telling the storylines, being involved. So it is going to become more and more about crowdsourcing, how people are going to become engaged and contributors in the brand rather than just being listeners. So I mean, co-creation of sorts is going to come in. So I think it is technology is only going to take on further, and what we are going to be looking at is going to be more about, we will be more of thinkers and less of execution. So everything that's to do, even currently, which is happening a lot, execution focus is going to be taken over by digital technologies. So yes.
Wonderful. So with this, I think we'll wrap the session, as we have already crossed the time. So, but I really enjoyed your presentation and the session today. Thank you, Anvesha, for being such a great speaker, and thank you, audience, to all the attendees, for being such a good audience and asking very relevant questions. So with this, we would end the session. Thank you all. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.